Hi, my name is Katie Garner, and today I have a new painting to start. This is a commission for someone who's a high school senior, and it's 2020 and we're all in quarantine and school's canceled, so they're trying to do something special for this sweet girl who isn't going to get her graduation, and they wanted me to paint this portrait of her senior picture. And also because it's 2020 and school is canceled, I've got my kids home. I don't know if you know this, but I have 7 kids. And so there's probably going to be some background noise. My youngest baby is sleeping, but I've got somebody in the kitchen doing the dishes that he didn't do last night that he was supposed to do. And so there's going to be some noise. We also have 2 dogs, so you just never know what's going to happen in the background of this video. But I am going to demo for you how I begin a portrait and how I lay in the foundation to make sure that my drawing is accurate before I ever get started. Because the most important part of a portrait is an accurate drawing. There are some things that can be forgiven a little bit. You can forgive a little bit of color issues and you can forgive a little bit of value issues if you have a very, very accurate drawing. What I prefer to do my underpaintings in for the most part is just a Van Dyke brown. So this is Graham brand Van Dyke brown. And I don't have a small container of this to show you, but I use Gamsol, Gamblin's Gamsol. And I only use that as my medium for the underpainting. So once my underpainting is done and I'm going to start the actual painting, then I definitely put my Gamsol away and I use an oil medium. I prefer linseed oil, and that's what I paint with. So I've got my Van Dyke brown on here, and I've got my Gamsol over here that I can dip into, and I'm using a bristle brush, just a big bristle brush. Doesn't really matter very much what kind of brush you're using at this point, because I'm just gonna scribble. I'm gonna keep dipping in my Gamsol as needed. I should have my painting secured better. So basically you're laying a foundation on here that, just so the background is not white, you'll be able to judge value better if you're not working on white. Sorry, let me secure this. Alright. I think this is good. Okay, so now I'm going to get a lint-free cloth of some kind. You can use a washcloth if you'd like. I do love the, you know, those blue shop paper towels? I like those. Those are good, but I don't have any at the moment. Now I'm going to use this paper towel as my painting tool to start laying in a foundation of roughly where this portrait is going to fall on my canvas. So I'm not going for accuracy. I'm just going to throw something out there, and I know it's going to need fixing, and that's okay. But I'm just going to be putting blobs in to give me an idea. So I'm thinking that her head is probably going to go somewhere around here, and it's kind of at this angle. And I'm going to start from the middle and work my way out. So I'm not starting at the edges. I'm starting from the middle, and I'm thinking it's about this size of a blob. And then she's got some hair back here, and there's a shoulder, and there's more hair. And I'm just looking at shapes, just shapes. I'm talking about what it is and giving it labels, and I shouldn't do that. I should just think of shapes. But I'm trying to talk about what I'm doing for you. Okay, and then she's got this hand up here. So I'm just rubbing off about where things are. There's a hand and roughly this shape here, and kind of like this. Okay, so I've got a general idea of what's going on, and then and then at this point I haven't committed to anything. That's the beauty of this, is that I can adjust as much as I want, and I don't have to be scared about what it's going to do if I try to adjust it at this point. So I can stand back and I can say, let's see, does this look right? Does this look how I want it? Do I want to move it over? Do I want to move it up? Do I want to do anything different with the composition so that it feels better? Or am I liking this? Okay. And I think we're pretty good. Like the placement of everything. I don't think we're going to have any weird tangents or anything like that. So I think I'm going to move forward. If I didn't like this, I could wipe the whole thing off. I could throw some more Gamsel and Van Dyke Brown on here and just completely start over, and it's not that big of a deal. And because I haven't put any other colors on here, I haven't added any white, I don't have any oil, like it's super easy to adjust and take off at this point. And I think you'll find that. Okay, so now I'm going to take just this Van Dyke that I had, and I'm going to start laying in some foundation lines that are going to be a guide. Okay, so on this face, I'm going to put a line. I'm going to look at the angle of her eyes. I'm going to put a line on my painting that just, it doesn't even have to be in the exact right place. It's just going to be a guide for the angle of her eyes. Does that look right? Yeah. And then I'm going to pretend like she doesn't have a nose. And I'm going to put a line from the middle of her forehead down to the middle of her chin. It's about at that angle. Kind of like that. So I can see that because our brains are always going to want to straighten that head out and make the eyes straight across and the face straight up and down. And so we have to really not think of it as a face. We have to think of it just totally abstract and think of angles and lines and shapes, and not even think about the fact that this is an eye and that's an eye, because then we want to put them like this, straight up and down and straight looking at you, and you'll always mess yourself up. So you got to try to shut that brain off and just look at shapes. Okay. Now I can give myself a few lines to guide me. And I'm looking at the shape of this shadow under her neck, and I'm looking at the shape that's created outside her face in the hair. And so I can use that as a guide and kind of just throw in a few lines here. And And know that these lines are subject to change at all times. I am not committing to anything. Nothing. I'm not committing to anything. Okay? I'm just looking at the angles. Okay, and what's this shape that I see? Okay, I'm also not going to paint eyes. I'm gonna look at the shape around the eye socket when I get there. I see a shape like this, and I'm using straight lines. I'm not going for curves right now. I'm just trying to get the general angle of things. So straight, and if it curves, then do a couple straight lines that show how it's curving. Okay? Don't try to do curvy lines. I see this little triangle created about right here in the gap between her hair and her shoulder or neck there. And I'm jumping around all the time, so I don't get too hyper-focused in one area. You want to kind of make sure you're looking at the whole thing and don't let yourself get into any detail at this point. Because as soon as you start getting into detail, before you've finished your overall rough sketch, you will commit yourself to an inaccurate drawing. Okay, now I want to know exactly where her sleeve is lining up with the top of her shirt here. I'm going to find a plumb line to draw. So plumb lines are either straight up and down or they're straight side to side. And I'm going to drop as many plumb lines as I can to make sure I'm putting things in the right place. So I can see that her shirt, her sleeve lines up pretty close to this neckline of her shirt. It's right above it. So it's kind of right here. Ish. We're just doing ish right now. Hi, sweetheart. Okay. You want to get out? You can't come in here. I have a baby gate up on this room so that I can block the baby out. So she's standing at the gate saying, I want to get out, meaning she wants to come in. Sorry, baby. So I'm going to look at where the bottom of her hand is here. And it's lining up with the bottom of her lip, which I haven't drawn yet. But it's also about right here. So it looks like I'm in about the right place there. There's a little... Okay. And I can see that I'm just going to draw a line for the angle of her knuckles right there that I can see. It's like this. And then there's one more up there. Angle of that finger. Angle. I'm not thinking of his fingers. I'm just thinking of what angle is that line, and what is the shape of the negative shape between the fingers. What, sweetie? And it helps too to divide the light and the dark. So I've got this dark shadow right up next to her face, and I've got another dark triangle right here. All these different shifts in value can serve as guides to help gauge where your drawing is and if things are in the right place. Hey, dogs, go away. Go away. Ginger, Lulu, go. Go. Ginger. Okay. Now I'm looking at the negative space between these fingers. There's a little triangle there. There's a little triangle of hair there. Just kind of, and of course my brush is huge right now, so I'm not getting into the details, right? I'm just putting general shapes in there that are going to guide me. Shape, shape, shape. And we're just looking at space between things. Okay. Now I'm going to start putting in, oh, see now I walked away to take care of my baby. Oh, and I'm seeing it differently already. I'm seeing that this needs to come down a little farther. There's this. Okay. Okay, we're going to go for the nose first. We're going to find if we can get the nose in an accurate place. I'm working my courage up to get to the nose here. Checking accuracy of the shape of this negative space created outside the face here. And look, I think that needs to come in a little. I can still wipe it off with my finger. That's how easy this is to change right now. I need a little paper towel because my finger is dirty. Okay. Okay. Here we go. How much? I'm gauging the size of this shape that's created by the edge of the nose and the edge of the cheek. I can see this circle of highlight right there on her cheek. And I'm going to kind of, sometimes I make circles on the cheeks just to like give myself a guide. So where's this? And remember, I can throw a line down, and if it's not right, I'm not committed. I just wipe it off. So it's not too stressful. I'm looking at angles. It will probably be easier to get a smaller brush at this point, I think. What do I have over here? Here's a smaller bristle brush. Okay. I think I actually drew this line kind of right where the beginning of the next eye socket is. Okay, so where's the edge of this nose? It's about right here. I'm looking for every shape I can possibly find on here. I can see this because that's going to help me gauge where I'm at and get an accurate distance measurement. So I'm looking for distance by using shapes. So I'm kind of trying to draw in those shapes a little bit for you so you can see what my eye is seeing. I can see that there's this long oval here on the nose. I'm looking at the angle of that nostril. Okay, but I can see, and then I'm also pulling tangent lines. So I'm looking at, if I do a straight across line right here, where does the top corner of that side of her nose line up with? And it almost directly lines up with this indentation between her eye and her cheek on the side of her face. So look, my brain is straightening out this nose and it's not accurate. Because look, if I put that same plumb line on here, my nose is way too low. So my brain straightened out this nose. So look, I'm just going to wipe it off. No big deal. Okay, try again. Okay, so this line felt pretty accurate. I'm still wishing I had a thinner brush. Okay, this one is a number 2 Rosemary and Company long flat serial 279, series 279. Okay, this is going to be a soft brush, and I can get an accurate thin line with it. Okay. Okay. Okay, now this, I already know I'm aiming higher this time with this nostril. We'll see if I can do it. It's looking better. It's looking better. Okay. And I'm looking at the angle of this. Okay. Okay, I'm feeling better about those lines. Alright. Now I need a plumb line vertically to see the edge of this nose. And what does it line up with? Oh, it's really lining up with the peak of her head right up here. So, assuming I have that peak in the right place, kind of checking the shapes up here. Oh, keep using my finger. Look, I'm going to erase the whole nose again. It's okay. No big deal. No harm done. This is how we get it accurate. I can't overstress the importance of an accurate drawing. You want this person to look human, and let alone if you want this person to actually look like the person you're painting. So important. You cannot have an inaccurate drawing. You spend as much time as you need to on this face, because if you don't, you'll end up with a poor painting. There's no way around it. Okay. Where is the tip of this nose? Right there. I'm looking at angles, looking at negative shapes. Thinking about my plumb lines. That comes. Okay. And I can see this a little dark shape under her nose here, so I'm going to put it in, because every shape, like every value change, is a guide for me. And now that I've drawn this negative shape in here, or this shadow under the nose. It's hard to talk and paint at the same time, you guys. Now that I've drawn this shadow under the nose, I can, don't go away on me, okay. I can gauge where the top lip is. Everything else on the face is now going to be gauged by that nose. So I'm drawing a plumb line to see where the middle of that lip is compared to that nostril, which now hopefully I got accurately. Looks like it's right there. Okay. And I'm looking at the angle about like this. Okay. And then I can see there's a triangle over here in the corner of the mouth. And my camera shut off on me, sorry. Okay. So there's this dark triangle over here that I'm not putting a name label to. It's just a dark triangle. And there's a dark space up here. And then there's this light area in here that some people might call teeth, but I'm not calling it teeth because I don't want to freak my brain out. It's just a shape. Drawing plumb lines because I don't want to straighten out this mouth. I can see the edge of that bottom lip, which I have to call a bottom lip so you know what I'm talking about, is in line with about right here on that nostril. So there is the edge of that lip down here. Just angles, shapes, angles, negative space, tangent lines. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about a face. Okay, now there's a darker area that I can see under this lip. It's about like this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this line that we drew in the beginning so that it doesn't mess us up there. Okay, see how easy that is to wipe off? So easy, because I haven't done anything else but Van Dyke Brown and Gamsol. Nothing else. So we can still wipe away. Okay. Now what is this shape down here that I've got? I see another circle, so I like to put circles to guide me. There's a circle. Okay. I gotta stop using my finger, but it's the closest thing I've got. It's a habit. This is part of why I definitely have to wear gloves. Okay, how big is this circle down here? Yeah, about like that. Which means the chin comes up about here. And again, I'm able to gauge this distance better between the bottom lip and the chin because I'm using this value shift that I see in her face as a guide for the shape. I'm just looking at the shape. Okay, now I'm going to go darker in this hair back here so that I can more easily distinguish between the hair and the chin. Give myself a better reference. And I need to rub off just a little. No big deal. Everything I do is bringing this a little bit more accurate. Okay. All right. Next, we've got eye sockets. We are not doing eyes yet. We are doing eye sockets. I'm going to lighten this line that we made so that I can see what I'm doing now. Okay. I see the top of an eye socket over here. Comes down like this. And then I see, now this is where it's really, really key to do tangent lines. If I go straight across from that eyebrow, I'm meeting with the bottom inside corner of her next eye. Sometimes it's helpful to do a little dot right where that inside corner is so that you can have that guide. And the inside corner also lines up with this nostril.
You're welcome so much.
About right there. Okay. So I can gauge from there where the top of this eyebrow is. About here. And the outside corner of this eye, maybe about there. Okay, where's the inside corner of this eye? Lines up with, oh, I'm painting on my screen. It's not a bad idea because I can wipe it off. Lines up with this gap right here. Okay. Okay, now even though I'm drawing an eye here, I'm not committing. I am committed to double checking and triple checking it and erasing it if I need to. Just completely wiping it off because it's not that big of a deal. If you commit and you get stubborn about it, which I tend to do, and I know that's my weakness, and that's why I'm sure to make sure that I am not being stubborn about it and thinking that it's not a big deal if the eye is just slightly off, because I like that eye that I just painted and I don't want to change it. I'm not going to do that because it's much more important to have an accurate drawing. Okay? Now, I'm using the value shift changes over here. I can see that there's this dark area above her eye, and I'm going to use that to help gauge where the eye is. It's going to help me see the shape if I see those value changes. Can you just turn off that alarm? Thank you. All right. I'm looking at angles, I'm looking at shapes. Okay. Okay, when you're putting eyeballs in, you are looking at the negative space outside the eyeballs. So the little triangles that are created on either side of the eyeball, the little triangles of the whites of the eyes, That's what you look at. You don't look at the eyeball. You look at those little triangles of whites of the eyes to make sure that you're leaving the correct amount of space outside the eyeball. And that will help you get a more accurate eyeball. Okay, I'm getting a little darker here because I'm getting more and more sure this is where I want it, but I'm still willing to wipe it off. Always working that willingness muscle, that humility muscle that's like, I did it wrong, I will change it. You gotta be willing to see it. Okay, now at this point I need to back up and I need to look at it and study it and see how I'm doing. Ooh, okay, now I can see some major things. That cheek needs to come out. Her left eye is tipped up too much. I didn't get the right angle there, so I mean, you guys, a fraction of an inch. We're talking a hair. A hair can, having it a hair off will make your person look like an alien. That's the nature of drawing portraits. Portraits are the hardest subject to paint. I also noticed this cheek needs to come out. So maybe you were watching me do this and you were like, oh, Katie, I can see that and it's bad. It's okay. It takes a new set of eyes sometimes to be able to see, because we get all into it and our eyes make up what we hope is there. And that's why you have to back up often. One time I was painting a portrait of my daughter, and it was of my youngest daughter at the time, and I called my oldest daughter into the room because I was so excited about what I was painting and I wanted to show her. And I was like, look at this picture, isn't it awesome? And she walked in the room and started laughing, and I was like, what are you laughing at? And she was like, oh, she's like, she looks like an alien. And I was like, what? And she was like, oh, is that not what you called me in for? I thought you were calling me in here to show me how funny this portrait looked. And I was like, no, I was calling you in because I was proud of it. And I thought it was looking good. And I got a reality check real quick. So sometimes it just takes that extra set of eyes. And you know what? I'm really glad now that she came in and laughed, because it opened up my eyes, and I was like, oh, I can see that now. My brain was blocking that out before. It did not want to see that. It just saw a beautiful picture of my daughter. I was seeing my daughter in it. Okay. Okay, backing up again to see how I'm doing. Okay, the angle of her nose feels off now. Let's see. What needs to shift there? It takes a minute sometimes for me to be able to tell. I mean, I can see that something's off, but it's like, gosh, I'm not sure what. In my brain, with my eyes, I start drawing plumb lines. I start looking at angles. I think part of it may be that this line just ended up too thick, and so if I narrow it down, I can get it more accurate. Values, meaning how light or dark something is, will make a big difference in what I'm seeing too. So if I kind of just keep working with these shapes that I see in the values and try to find them all, that will help my eye see this more accurately. I've got kind of a dry brush here, and so I'm just trying to get subtle value shifts. And because this is starting to dry, I can use my finger now to rub off where it needs to be a little lighter. And I want to make sure, when I'm drawing this eye, I want to make sure that the peak of the eye, its biggest, widest point, is in the right place. Is it Dad?
Yeah.
Okay. Every time I back up, I see something else. Just a fraction of an inch off. Okay. Just trying to give myself a little bit of a hint of these values up here. They're obviously off. I'm not going to get real accurate values with this, but I can kind of distinguish between light and dark anyway. Okay, so where is this bend in her hair? Where is that lining up with? It looks like it's kind of lining up with the top of her pinky and right through the iris. So is there a straight line here between the top of her pinky and through the iris and to that peak in her hair? It's like maybe this needs to alter just slightly. Now I'm looking at this shape. You see bloop, 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 bloop. So I'm seeing in a circle here and kind of a triangle-ish shape here. So how wide is that triangle is shaped? If I bring, okay, there's a little bit of a darkness there, and this line actually looks like it goes more at like this angle. Okay, so I've got shape. It gets a little darker there. Okay. And then this line actually goes a little more this way. If it's getting too dry, I just get a little bit more Gamsol on my brush. Okay, so I've got curl. Coming into these darkest darks. A little more, just to help me define some things. Looks like
This rust is totally garbage.
all right, backing up. How are we doing? Oh, look, my camera put a box around the face I'm painting. It recognizes it as a face. That's a good sign. That is a good sign. Okay, I'm looking at her eyes. Still feeling like I got too high on this eye, on this edge of this eye. It needs to come down a little. Yeah, okay. Sometimes if I want to erase really accurately on here, I put the edge of my brush over the paper towel, or the paper towel over the edge of the brush, and then I can come in and just get a little spot instead of getting my fat finger in there. Okay. Once again, just double, triple, quadruple checking from backed up, because your perspective is completely new when you back up. Backing up. Boy, it is just really hard to get this coming down enough to where it feels right, but I know it's just a hair. It's just a hair off because it looks so accurate, but when I back up, it doesn't look accurate, so something is wrong. Just a hair. Okay, this might help. Bring this shape in so I can see. Okay. This, where's this shift in value down here? Lost my circle. sometimes this cheek might feel too big, and it actually can be accurate lines, but because I didn't put any shadow on there and the value is too bright, it looks too big. So sometimes you gotta mess with the value a little bit. Looks like the top line of her mouth needs to move up. Okay. Now I'm feeling like the angle of her mouth is a little off. Yeah. I think this side of her mouth is too high by just a hair. I gotta look and make sure that everything looks like it's going with this line and this line. Sorry. This line and this line, those original lines that we drew, is the angle of her face looking like the angle of her face in the picture. Okay, doing another plumb line, the edge of her lip. Okay, that looks right. Sorry, that was the edge of her mouth. Now the edge of her lip. It's like, yeah, it's pretty accurate, but you know, just at this point it's hard because I want to see the values correct too. My eye's like, yeah, but it's too dark. So is it right? I don't know. Or it's too light. Okay. So just got to try to see abstractly and make sure that all those lines are in the right spot is all. All right, so I feel like I've got a pretty accurate drawing now, and it's a good idea to take a break at this point if you have the time to, and go do something else for a few minutes and then come back and see if you see anything. Obviously back up and look at it and study it for a long time. And just go back and forth, checking visually just with your eyes or with your paintbrush and holding your paintbrush up. check for plumb lines, check for like, if I go from the top of her head to the bottom of her chin and measure that with my finger. So I hold my arm completely all stretched out and that's how I know, okay, that's how I know where I'm at, okay? So if I have the top of her head, the bottom of her chin, and this is how tall it is. Now I take that measurement, still in the same photograph, and I compare it to something else. Wow, I find something else that's like almost exactly the same height or width, okay? Straight up and down or straight across. But I'm seeing from the top of her finger to where her sleeve starts on her arm, it's almost exactly the same height as that peak of her head and bottom of her chin. So now, if I go to mine, I'm like, okay, top of her head, bottom of her chin. Oh, look. Top of her finger to her sleeve, it's the same. So I got that accurate. Now I can check the width somehow. So I'm going to go from this point at the top of her eye socket there to the edge of her hair, which ends up being about right here, straight across. And then I turn it this way and think, okay, what can I measure? Find something that's, or I can keep the same way. If there's something that's that same distance. Looks like. Interesting. Okay, there's an equidistance between the top of her eye socket, where her eyebrow is, and the edge of her hair to the very tip of her chin down here and the back edge of her shoulder. That's the same. So go like this to the edge of her hair, and then edge of her chin to the back of her shoulder. Look, there it is. Okay, that's accurate. So I know that her head is tall enough and wide enough, and I've got those things down accurately. Now, I was doing this visually and checking that while I was painting, but that's something you should probably check on yours sooner, because if you've committed, if you've drawn in, you've spent the time, you haven't committed, but you've spent the time to draw in the face, and then you go and you measure the height of her head and the width of her head, and you're like, dang it, it's totally off. You're not going to want to erase that face because you feel like you've already put so much time into it and it hurts. So don't do that face until you've measured to make sure that the size of your shapes is accurate. Then you can go in and start with the nose and work your way to the eye sockets and the mouth in whatever order you want. You start with the nose. You start with the distance between the edge of the face and the nose and this distance, and you get all of that accurate before you move on, because then you know if you've nailed the nose, you can get all the other stuff accurate from there. Once you've double checked and triple checked everything, a really good thing to do is to snap a picture with your phone. Snap a picture of your drawing and snap a picture of your reference photo. And then I use some kind of collage app if you have one. The one that I use is called Layout. Oh, there's the symbol if you can see it. Layout. Okay. So in Layout, I can take the two pictures that I just took and I can put them side by side. This gives me a really good way to compare the two pictures and see how accurate my drawing is. And I can tell when I've shrunk them down to thumbnail size, it's like I've backed up 20 feet. And I can look and say, whoa, now I can see that this is totally off. That's usually what happens. So now that I've made sure that this underlying drawing is as accurate as I can possibly get it, and I have spent way more time than I thought that I was going to, and I've double and triple checked it, and I've taken pictures on my phone, and I've checked my plumb lines, and I've checked the sizes and distances of things, then the first thing that I'm going to do next is I'm going to work on the background, and I'm going to get the background exactly how I want it. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'll work on the background and then I'll continue the painting and I will just put the rest in a fast motion video for you. Enjoy!